We came into this town and it's pitch dark. We get into your house and your fridges is off.
Several cables that were stolen. It's an inconvenience to the people. In fact, most of the people that were already arrested so far are working for City Power.
As you know, these guys are gunslingers, and they target you because they see that you are targeting them. When we hit you hard.
Right, cable theft appears to be continuing unabated despite regular reports of arrests and law enforcement operations. Communities are often plunged into darkness, endangering communities, crippling economic output, and at times claiming lives. For more on this, we're joined by Eldorado Park Councillor Dwain Ponsonby, Kagiso Extension 14 residents David Selemogo. We also have Keabetswe Malebo, and he's from Pimville, as well as City Power Head of Risk and Security, Mashangu Xivambu, also joining us. We have Sergeant Taylor, Head of Risk and Security at City Power, as well with us. Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Before we get into our conversation, let's dive deep into the conversation by taking a look at what has been said by the Gauteng Provincial Police Commissioner, General Elias Mawela, on the recent action against cable theft criminals and vandals.
Gauteng, we are the first province whereby we have established our essential infrastructure task team, and those teams, they are hard at work, they are doing very well. In Johannesburg, I have 8 teams, in Tshwane 7, Ekurhuleni, I'm also having 7 teams. West Rand and Sidibeng, I'm having 3 teams each. And these teams, they've done very well. What excites us, especially what we have recently achieved in Centurion, we have arrested people who were found in possession of these cables. And it is clear that these cables have been stolen from our main telecom warehouse. And again, there is another big bust which we have just achieved in Industria West here in Johannesburg, whereby the 2 foreign nationals were also arrested, whereby we have recovered a big bulk of cables possibly stolen from City Power and Eskom. So these task teams are doing extremely well for us here in Gauteng.
Are authorities winning the war against cable theft, or are they losing the war? Based on that, you would think maybe they are, certainly. But if you look at the numbers, they'll tell you that this crime is almost getting out of hand. I mean, if you look at what is being reported in 3 years in Ohio, Texas, one of the big states where cable theft is currently going on, in 3 years, they reported 2,398 cases. In South Africa, in 1 year, we reported 72,533 cases. So let me start with City Power. Are authorities losing the war on cable theft?
Look, South Africans, good evening. I think it's too early to tell. One will need to appreciate that the emphasis on the establishment of the essential infrastructure task teams was emphasized by the President on the 8th of February 2022 during the State of the Nation address. And as you have heard, the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng has just recently established the teams. But what I can tell you now, there is a lot of collaboration on the ground. The evasiveness of the criminals and the modus operandi which they employ in doing this is quite sophisticated. Hence, I'm saying I think it's going to take some time to at least start to see the gains we're making on the ground.
Yeah. I'm going to come to the modus operandi in a moment. Dwain, let's bring you in here. From your perspective, specific factors that are risk factors when it comes to copper theft in communities. And are community members aware of these risk factors and the consequences that ensue when copper theft is happening in their communities?
Firstly, good evening, and thanks for having me. Like Sergeant Taylor says, this thing is real, it's tangible, it's all around us, and we are faced with this daily. The residents of Eldorado Park, I'm going to speak for Eldorado Park specifically, they're aware of the risk. The people now have taken to the streets, securing their own infrastructure, making sure that they do not suffer the effects of this cable theft, because it's really getting to us. You've got the sick and the elderly, you've got people dependent on oxygen and all those type of things that is now being affected by this crime. I myself have been shot at by cable thieves. And we've assembled a team to address these issues daily. After this interview, I will be hitting the street with my team in search of these people. So the risks are there. The people are aware of the risk. Today, Eldorado Park has just faced another 14 hours of not having electricity because of the effects of this crime.
In Pimville, it's also fresh in our minds, actually, the situation there. If the communities are aware of the risk factors of the consequences, why is there hesitation in reporting?
Good evening to the viewers. Good evening to Soweto at large. The risk factors. I mean, my brother, listen. To tell you the honest truth, Mr. Mdluli, in our community, we have a really big issue in terms of cable theft. The community is aware. We are a community that really pays rates and taxes within the community. So we do report those kind of issues. Hence, that's why when it comes to cable theft, we stand up as a community of Pimville, Keabetswe as a whole, because we are aware of, the importance of electricity. We are aware of the importance of paying electricity in the community. Hence, that's why when it comes to cable theft, we are the first ones on the ground as community leaders reporting the issue, helping Eskom that in a space of 7 days in terms of coming back to the community and solving issues that are cable theft related or faults that are related. We are the ones that are helping Eskom in terms of making sure that in a space of 7 days we cap the turnaround time, Eskom. Right. We make sure that we know the hotspots. We make sure that when it comes to those kind of issues, we are the ones that are reporting and helping Eskom.
But so, why, as you talk about that 7-day turnaround, why is it that in 7 days, right, City Power or Eskom would replace a cable, and that very same cable in the same place would be stolen 7 days later? I mean, what makes this infrastructure such easy targets for criminals?
I mean, number one, let's speak about how our cables run within our community. I speak for Pimville, I speak for Keabetswe. Bela Sasol, next to River Station, by Chris Honey. Our cables run from Mfulo South, connecting Mumfuli, which is an open felt, connecting into the community. It's an open space. The cables are not guarded. It's a mine for cables. City Parks is not playing a role in terms of cutting that grass. Eskom is not playing a role in terms of guarding those cables. And Reavaya as well is not playing a role. Sasol is not playing a role because they've got cameras around to protect our infrastructure. Right. We help those companies benefit in terms of petrol, in terms of commuting, but Rona community, they are not helping us. Right. Eskom is not playing a role within the society.
In fact, as you say that, let's bring in Mashangu. Mashangu is joining us via Zoom. Mashangu, Eskom is not playing its role. And that's the question I want to put to you. In the installation or construction of this infrastructure, is security prioritized? The perception of communities are that you put these things in wide open felt, there's no grass cutting, there's no security that is prioritized, and it's just easy picking for criminals.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good evening to the viewers. I think it is not correct to say that Eskom is not playing its role. Our role as Eskom is to supply electricity to our communities. And what is happening now, I think we need to acknowledge as a country that as a country we are under siege because of what is currently happening now with cable theft. And the impact of cable theft to Eskom, to the country, and to the society at large is huge in that, number one, it causes extended power interruptions to our community. It has got a huge negative impact in the economy of our country. And our people are left without electricity for an extended number of days because of this cable theft. Yeah. Now, we need to appreciate that for us to be able to transmit power from our substations or from the point where electricity is being generated up to the point where the electricity reaches the customer. We have to use the open fields, unfortunately. Yeah. And I think as a country, we need to be patriotic enough and love our country enough for communities to know that they've got a role as well to play to make sure that we safeguard and protect.
Unfortunately, Mashangu, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. So tell me about this open field. For example, how are you monitoring that power installation right now as we speak in Pimville? What measures have you put in the protection of the pylons? How have you secured the cables on the ground? What product are you using which prevents those things being dragged out of the trenches?
Okay, for a start, I can share with you that just in Gauteng only, we spend over 120 million a year on security to protect our infrastructure. Now, if you look in terms of the extent of the cables that we have got in Eskom, cables as well as overhead lines, we have got over 24,000 kilometers of high voltage overhead lines. We have got over 240,000 kilometers of medium voltage lines, which is overhead. We have got over 3,000 kilometers of high voltage cables and over 32,000 kilometers of medium voltage underground cables. Obviously, it will not be practical for one to put a security guard to guard all that infrastructure that I've shared with you. Yeah. I've indicated that we do have security in place, but obviously it's impossible to guard each and every cable, to guard each and every structure. And over and above that, we have now instituted security measures. We are installing cable detectors in our underground cables, such that when people start digging on the ground to dig out the cables, it can be able to alert our security to be able to respond to such type of people who are interfering with our networks. Yeah. Over and above that, number one, like I've indicated, that we've got security. We've also instituted technology to make sure that we protect the cables. But unfortunately, it's not possible to make sure that each and every point, each and every meter of a cable is guarded.
All right. And I'm going to come back to it because you've mentioned that, and then we'll raise some other issues with you. David, Eskom says it's impossible to protect every meter of the cable. They spend 120 million on this stuff. Communities need to begin to take pride in their own infrastructure because it affects them. Is that a satisfying response for you?
Thank you, Mr. Mdluli, for having me here, and good evening to the viewers, all the residents of Kagiso. That's not a satisfying answer. Honestly, with Eskom, they like to come up with a blame game. This is just a blame game because you know that your infrastructure is at risk. What do you do to protect that infrastructure? Telling us that it's impossible for them to protect. Because like if you go to Kagiso, I'll speak about Kagiso. You check when they put that area of the cables, aerial ones, you will report to Eskom that, okay, they have cut maybe 5 meters of the cables. Eskom will not come until the whole cable, maybe 100 meters of the cable is gone, without coming. Yeah. Then at a later stage, that's when now they will come with the blame game to come and blame communities for their own negligence. We wouldn't agree with Eskom on that part. Communities, we will play our role. We can play our role up to a certain point. But there will be a time where we also get fed up and say, no, but what is it that Eskom is doing? Because Eskom, they are not playing their part when it comes to that. Because I can also say they've got a hand in this cable theft. Yeah. Because they know what's happening.
Why would you say they've got a hand?
Because people report, we report about them. So what are they doing? They need to find out. Because there will be syndicates for these cables. Right. They need to find out, okay, people are stealing our cables. Where are they taking these cables to? Yeah.
So there are 4 areas that have been identified, right, David, as players in this space. You've got your merchants, the dealers who sell scrap metal, right? Scrap metals, You've got petty thieves, subsistence thieves who, as you say, they steal it by 100 meters. So they don't have infrastructure to take the whole thing, right? Yes. So they come and then you've got syndicates who then would pull a whole kilometer of the thing and they loot and send it outside. And then there are those who say there are security companies at play. here to an extent.
Yes.
Now you're saying the police are also
there. They know.
Or even ESCOM officials also.
They could be there because they know about that. There is no way that in Kagiso will report the same thing as in Pimville. They are reporting the same thing, and we're doing nothing about that.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Imagine if someone breaks into your house. What are you going to do? You're going to make sure that you find out what exactly happened there. So this is now ESCOM's infrastructure. Yes, we can play the blame game to the communities, why communities are not protecting their infrastructure. But what is it that ESCOM is doing to protect that?
Yeah.
Because it will be like, as he said, my brother from Pimville, that they are exposing that to the thieves.
Yeah.
They'll go and connect. You know that this is a high-risk zone. Then you go back to the same area to connect this. Now I heard him over there that they are now connecting the cables underground. So, of which I wouldn't agree with that. When it comes to Kagiso, we don't have that. It's only area.
Yeah.
Recently,
maybe it's a good thing that you don't know. Maybe they do have them underground. You just
we don't know about them.
That could be a good thing. Dwain, 120 million. I saw you shaking your head. Clearly, you're not seeing the 120 million.
Mr. T, to me, it's quite clear. You guys just discuss who has a hand in this. It is not the responsibility of community to look after these cables. He has just stated that 120 million rand is paid into securing this. It means somebody has a contract. And these people that has the contracts is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, Sergeant. You know that. We have the discussion every day. Why not take the 120 million and empower communities? Then keep them accountable to look after the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You want to throw money around every time. It's high-tech security systems, high-tech camera systems. We are the ones, as community, Kagiso, Pimville, wherever that is affected, we are the people that is arresting these criminals currently. The security companies, they sit and sleep with heaters on in the cars. They're not even patrolling, but they earn R1 million, and now you're putting it to people that is unemployed, that has to fend for a loaf of bread, to look after what belongs to you.
Yes.
It is now your responsibility. You signed an SLA as a contract to say that you take full responsibility for that cable. But now you are sending us as community to face guns, to face
limitation and frustration regarding the guarding of the infrastructure. You put the money, but as you put it earlier on, that the copper theft syndicates are a little bit more agile than you are. You are a little bit more fixed and stagnant in how you are operating. Therefore, very little effectiveness and efficiency in how you're guarding infrastructure. And now you want the communities to be facing guns, because I believe now they even come in guns blazing, and they are not afraid. There's brazenness.
Maybe we need to put this into context, because one will need to firstly appreciate that this electricity network infrastructure, either ESCOM or City Power, it doesn't matter, was really installed many years ago. In that, the crime we are seeing now, it was never part of the consideration by the engineers to say, we are putting this copper cable here, it may be uprooted, okay? So we are actually now on a reactive mode, reacting against this criminality, because more or less like a new phenomenon. However, from a City Power perspective, maybe we're a bit privileged because we've got councillors like Dwain and all the other councillors we interact with on a regular basis. Part of our turnaround security strategy is to collaborate with communities. One of our strategy pillars is to engage on what you call local security contracting.
Local security contracting, okay.
Yes. Which means a specific network that is located in a specific geographical area, obviously within that specific community. It could be a ward, it could be whatsoever, in which what you call communities are actually demarcated. You then go out there, you say, okay, we will want a security service provider to protect this specific network, because you need to be specific. You cannot just have a blanket cover to say I'm contracting company X to protect network. You need to be very clear which network is starting from where to where. I think by so doing, we are quite very ambitious that we will be able to turn the corner. Over and above, that is not the only strategy. It's just one
Just
pillar.
one. All right.
within that strategy.
At what level is that strategy targeted? At the syndicates? Is that something that is targeted more at the subsistence, local guys? Because I suppose the syndicates and those companies are working at a completely different level.
Yeah. I think maybe we need to make a distinction here. We need to distinguish between security work and police work.
Yeah.
Okay. The time your target is the criminal, that is more of a police work. The time your target is the infrastructure, that is the security work. So, but in between, there should then be that collaboration, where then we collaborate with the essential infrastructure task team. As an example, if the community do arrest, we should then be able to immediately hand over that case to the police, and the police will be able to run with it.
Okay.
On the same time, if we do pick up information of syndicate groupings, scrap metal dealers and what, we should then be able to create those levels of communication, okay, where that information is shared with the police, and the police can then be able to react onto that and then arrest this particular criminal.
Okay. Mashangu, quick 2 minutes before we have to go to break, but just outline for us your awareness campaigns that you're doing in these communities, because you rely on them to be able to respond as far as security is concerned. The complaint is that there is just not enough awareness being conducted, but besides that, awareness alone is not enough. When you hear that, there is not enough that is being done, but also even if you were, awareness alone would not be enough to negate the copper theft criminals being successful.
Yeah, maybe let me clarify to say that our expectation as ESCOM, we're not saying that we're expecting the communities to be the one who's responsible for making sure that the cables does not get stolen. But we are saying that we are doing our part as ESCOM to make sure that the cables are protected, like I've mentioned. And in terms of technology over and above, like the detectors that I've mentioned, you know, as part of our effort to build infrastructure as engineers, we're supposed to be designing networks to supply electricity. But we end up spending a lot of money currently on the protection of such network as well as equipment, of which that money was supposed to be used to be extending electricity to the people that does not have access to electricity. However, we do engage with communities, we do engage with councillors. Specifically in Soweto, I have been with all the councillors in Soweto about the electricity-related matters, be it issues of security. We do discuss with them and to indicate to them that, like, the people who are stealing the cables, most of them are known to the communities, and it's people that they know around. Obviously, for you to be able to steal 100 meters of cable, you have to dig out that particular cable. And it's not the type of work that you can be able to do while people are not observing you, because the cables are running in front of the people's streets, in front of the people's yards. But communities just look at it and they don't do anything about it, even when they do see. And our expectation is that, like, as soon as they see things like that, it can be reported to ESCOM, it can be reported to the police, so that they can be able to react, so that we can be able to arrest the people. But in terms of awareness, we do have regular engagements with the councillors, with the communities, to sensitize about the safe use of electricity, as well as the dangers of open cables, as well as the risk of people stealing these cables, so that, like, if it gets reported in time and police and our security can be able to respond, we are able to arrest some of these people.
All right.
We've had successful cases where people were arrested.
I'm going to come back to you. I want to hear a little bit more on those successful cases. Got to take a break now. Live tonight here on In Focus, the conversation as community, as communities rather, communities doing enough to protect electricity infrastructure. This as various communities in South Africa have been plunged into darkness due to the effects of cable theft. You can, of course, go to Newzroom 405 and let us in on your views. Otherwise, on WhatsApp 072-110-5584. That's where you can send us your messages tonight. I hear Keabetswe is itching to respond to that, so we'll come back to him in a moment when we continue next. Stay with us.
We came into this town and it's pitch dark. We get into your house and your fridges is off.
Several cables that were stolen. It's an inconvenience to the people. In fact, most of the people that we have already arrested so far are working for City Power.
As you know, these guys are gunslingers, and they target you because they see that you are targeting them.
When we hit you hard.
They allege even some of our SOEs employees are actually implicated, your City Power, and some of them working for Eskom, others working for Telkom. Who know where some of these cables, where the network of these cables are, and they are able to redirect them. So quite a lot of people have actually been arrested, and even the owners who then accept these stolen cables, they've actually been arrested. Some of them are Chinese, they originate from China. One of them could not even produce documents, but others were able to produce their documents. And police are continuously investigating. So we believe if we continuously have crime intelligence doing its work, it will be able to find some of these wrong things that are actually happening here.
The conversation tonight, we've got the stakeholders around the table, representing Eldorado Park, Dwain Ponsonby, representing Kagiso, David Selemogo. We also have from Pimville in Soweto, Keabetswe Malebo, and from City Power, Head of Risk and Security, with us, rather from Eskom, Head of Risk and Security. Why am I mixing my things here? We've got Mr. Xivambu, and we also have Sergeant here with us from City Power. All right, before the break, I was looking at that montage, Keabetswe. I mean, it's a big hole, it's a trench, a big thing, right? You cannot say the community walks around there, to Mashangu's point, and they look at this hole and they think, it's just a hole on the ground. They obviously know what is going on there, right? As one gentleman on the montage says, when we come for you, we hit you and we hit you hard. Could possibly that be the reason why the community would keep quiet when they see that hole being dug there?
Mr. Mflui, listen, my brother over there, he's speaking from a point of privilege. Wahola. He's defending Eskom. Let me tell you the honest truth. We know what is going on within our communities. You can't say the community is keeping quiet. Right now, the community of Pimville has shaken South Africa because we are one of the communities that is exposing cable theft within our communities. I mean, in a space of a week, Mansfield got shot, Pimville got shot at, Eldorado got shot at, in a space of a week. So we are speaking about communities that are trying to fight cable theft on the daily. Because I mean, Pimville, for example, Pimville is a community with a high number of senior citizens. It's an old community. What we are trying to do for the community of Pimville, as young leaders, as leaders of the community, is that we're trying to fight cable theft the best way as possible. We went there to fight Eskom last year in terms of Mabox Achang. Transformers are burning down. Maintenance of Eskom is not being properly done. The security is absurd, actually, because what they are doing is that they are trying to defend themselves and saying the community knows the culprits. They know the culprits because of, let's tell you the honest truth, cable theft, the syndicate of cable theft has risen in the past couple of years because of reckless statements that have been made by certain politicians of certain political parties advocating for open borders. You say open the borders. Who is coming in? South Africans they don't demolish their infrastructure. We know. Basotho nationals are working on cable theft. Eldorado is suffering the same way because of Kotampung.
Yeah, how do you know? How do you know?
It's a fact.
Yeah. If you're going to make that statement, then back it up. How do you know?
Because of 3 formal settlements are surrounding our communities. Kotampung, by the landfill, it's next to Eldorado, where the councillor was shot at. Chicken Farm is facing Pimville as well, and it's next to us, Basotho nationals. Yeah. That's where that. You have Maseru, which is next to Keabetswe, Basotho foreign nationals.
But you've got the ABC. They're saying it's City Power officials. It's these guys that work for City Power.
Let me tell you something.
That are running the syndicates.
We are on the ground. We are on the ground. We know the issues on the ground. We see it on the daily.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me about issues.
What is the method of operation? You are on the ground. What do you see? What is the modus operandi of copper thieves?
Okay, so this is how they work, right? So they target the open space where our cables run. They set themselves there, making sure that they cut those cables and they can easily able to mine those joints. Chicken Farm is facing Mufolo substation, where our cables run. Where our cables run is opposite Chicken Farm. Yeah. They are able to steal a cable using dynamite. Yeah. This is 3 weeks ago, just after the minister came, Peggy. He came 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later actually, they used an explosive to take copper. So if he's saying that they are speaking about putting detectors and making sure that they're going to detect, what are they going to detect? Because of the issue is that these people are heavily armed and they're using explosives to take the cables.
Sergeant, I mean, an explosion is a seismic event. If you've got a detector and a monitor that is detecting movement, surely as soon as that thing blows up, your system must go haywire. You don't even need the community to report. You should immediately come and rushing to see what's going on.
Yeah, look, as I've indicated earlier, this type of crime, it no longer requires this traditional security. As my brother has indicated, these criminals are heavily armed. You ask me, I've already lost security personnel, shot at, and their lives taken. The other incident, there was a standoff between my security personnel and the criminals. They couldn't sustain the gunfight because they were carrying the small guns and the criminals were carrying really heavy machines. So my team retreated and they ran away. Guess what? The criminals went directly to the vehicle and they set it on fire. So we are not dealing with small criminals here, you know, where you would say, no, this guy, I can deal with him with a donkey bill. No. Hence, I appreciate the intervention by the police to set up the essential infrastructure task team. Yeah. Because my expectation then is that that particular task team is not also going to come with the ordinary police.
But what's the use of having a task team if you're then going to prosecute them under the old Second-Hand Goods Act? And there's some who've been calling for maybe a tighter sentence to those who get arrested.
Why are they not being charged with the Immigration Act as well? Because they're undocumented. We had 35 cases from 15 April to now. All of them are free.
Yeah?
All of them are free. And we caught them red-handed with cable in hand.
Yeah,
you know that.
Because the charge is not...
Like, I would agree with the councillor. Yeah. As my brother said earlier on, like this, my brother will be talking to us via Zoom. He's also speaking from point of privilege. Because you need to understand, we will get the people. He's saying that they've got securities, traditional securities that now cannot be able to defend the infrastructure. So if you see that these securities cannot defend infrastructure, what are you doing now to be able to protect the infrastructure? What is City Power doing? What is ESCOM doing? Because, as I said earlier on, they are just trying to play a blame game. Yeah. Because they themselves are failing to protect their own infrastructure.
Yeah. 34 arrested, and they're out in a week. Out. Because the charge is it just doesn't stick.
It's what Kagiso said. Yeah. It's what Kagiso said. Somebody opened the borders. Yeah. And they're still proud of opening the borders.
Yeah, look, maybe I understand the colleagues. They are the community. They really experience this on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, they become emotional when they talk about it. And I feel pity for that as well myself. But answering your first question, these criminals, we no longer charge them under the Second-Hand Goods Act. We have got the Criminal Matters Amendment Act that came in 2015. It's the Criminal Matters Amendment Act 18 of 2015. That is the act that established an essential infrastructure crime. If you go and read Section 1 of that act, it will tell you what essential infrastructure crime means. Yeah. It means tampering, damage of any installation that supply water, electricity, communication, transportation.
And what sanction does that carry?
Now, the highest sanction you're going to get on that is 30 years direct imprisonment without an option of a fine. I do have a couple of cases at City Power. Last year, around about February, we had one suspect. He stole around about 1 meter of a cable around the Parkview police station prisons. We supported the case at City Power because we do document statements. We also go to court and provide testimony in support of the prosecutorial process. So able to attain 15 years direct imprisonment. The latest one was in January, where I personally deposed the statement. 2 suspects that stole our cable in the Malberton area. Currently, they are serving 8 years direct imprisonment without any option of a fine.
Yeah.
So the issue is to say, how then we, as the owners of the infrastructure, we collaborate with the police as well as the prosecutors in terms of taking this particular matter.
So the big thing then is that most of this matter is actually heading outside of South Africa.
Yes.
It's not being sold here. It's heading out. So there is a big question. Does the export market have a direct influence on this thing, and how do you police that?
Okay. Our understanding, which is actually my recommendation to the broader government, you see all this copper cable theft, it's driven by the external market. And this crime is a transnational crime. It goes beyond our borders. As we speak, well, as of last week when I checked, the normal price of a kg of copper was around about 150 rand. And I also pick up information that on the black market, the kg goes up to 220. Okay? So it's for the highest bidder. Now what is happening is that, obviously the market being outside, we are a bit not strict in terms of the policing of our exports. Okay? My recommendation will be that if we were to adopt some other initiative, almost similar to the United States of America, who adopted the container security initiative after 9/11, where they are able now to screen containers.
Every single container, not just...
Every single container.
Yeah.
So here in South Africa, well, I've heard from national government, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, that Cabinet is looking at a policy that will regulate this copper cable, trading and the likes. My view is that if we can strengthen the regulation of the export, at least if you kill the market, whosoever steals a cable locally, he will know where to sell it. After all, no one is going to buy it. And by so doing, you'll be able now to actually cap the extent to which our network is actually...
Mashangu, let's bring you in here as well. I mean, why is Eskom not pushing hard enough to your shareholder to say we need tougher regulations that is monitoring the export market in particular? Control the export process and you will have a much larger impact, they say.
Yeah, I think like you'll recall, my opening remarks was that as a country we are under siege. And I think if we agree that as a country we are under siege, we cannot be expected to respond in a casual manner if we agree that as a country we are under siege. The people that we're dealing with very highly militarized people. I think like my brother from Soweto, from Keabetswe was talking earlier on. We had an incident as well from Eskom in Keabetswe. In Zola, next to our CNC, where the communities, where the thieves were busy digging the cables out. And our security responded. And in that response, then there was an exchange of gunfire between the security and the people who were coming to steal the cables. And because like it's people who are highly militarized with high caliber rifles, one of our security guards was unfortunately fatally wounded in that specific incident. And secondly, it is true that, like, if you look at the market itself, the theft of our copper cables, number one, they are used to supply electricity to the informal settlements. Number two, they end up with the scrap metal dealers where the copper get exported to other countries outside of South Africa. And I think that's where now government need to play a bigger role in terms of making sure that the control and the management of copper sales through the scrap metal dealers, it needs to be controlled Because like if you check, I mean, we've got under 5,000 official scrap metal dealers in South Africa. And if you look at the rate at which we are losing infrastructure in the country and the impact to the economy, it is worth building a police station right in front of each and every scrap metal dealer so that you can be able to police as to what is getting in, what is coming out of those scrap metal dealers. So we really need to change gears and come with drastic measures that will demonstrate that we are acknowledging that we are under siege and we cannot continue to be casual and deal with it as if like we're dealing with petty crime. Because currently what we're doing as ESCOM, we need to acknowledge that as ESCOM, we are not a security force, we are not an army. We can come up with a technology that can be able to protect the equipment, but we can't use technology and engineering to address socio-economic challenges. In Gauteng, like we've got over 30,000 people that are entering Gauteng only, like on monthly basis. That's over 350,000 people that are coming in annually. And those people require shelter. Yeah. So they will occupy or grab land and they sit, and once they're sitting there, they will require electricity, they will require water, and they will tap into the infrastructure. And obviously for them to be able to do that, they steal cables from our infrastructure to connect illegally on those informal settlements. That's number one. And number two, they also sell to the scrap metal dealers, and I think that's where now the government needs to step in. Okay. However, with the establishment of the Essential Infrastructure Task Team, because it's not only ESCOM as well as City Power that is affected. We've got PRASA, we've got Transnet, we've got Telkom, we've got the same challenge. And I believe now with us joining forces together with our communities, we can be able to defeat this, but obviously we really require government now to step in to make sure that we demonstrate that we are acknowledging that we are under siege as a country.
Right. Let's take a break there on that note. Mashangu Xivambu, Senior Manager Maintenance Operations at ESCOM. When we come back, what are proactive steps that we can take as a country put on the table tonight? Stay with us.
Cable theft hurts grannies and grandpas and children because the children's mothers, they're not there. We grannies must stay and look after the children in the dark.
It's a big problem. Cable theft continues, in most instances unabated, bringing the community to actually come out and do something about it. Maybe others are saying, I see on Twitter, it's an unfair question to ask the community if they are doing enough. It should not really be their responsibility to be doing that. But we are a country under siege, as you're hearing from ESCOM. Let's quickly get to some proactive countrywide action. One has been put on the table, a local security contract, which could, of course, have other implications as far as our PFMA and everything else that comes with it. But what do you think would be some proactive actions that can be taken?
Okay. I support my leader over there speaking about local security companies. Because we know our own problems and we are the ones that are guarding within our communities. We do investigation in terms of cable theft. We've been working with the clip down security companies, or which are patrollers. So what we are trying to do is that we need to make sure that the task team that they're speaking about, the task team that Begekele said that he's going to deploy, is supposed to be a task team that comes from the community, because of if you guard your own infrastructure, you will not damage your infrastructure. So if ESCOM is hiring Bidvest or is giving Bidvest a contract to guard the cables, do you think that they are going to do a good job? They're not going to do a good job. Because the main problem here is that Bidvest is contracted to guard our cables, but Bidvest is not coming up with solutions. As I mentioned, that we need to engage with city parks as well. By the open space where our cables come out from Fuller substation, that whole open space, we need to make sure that we make it in a park. Because of, if Ibamushaka, the problem is that criminals hide with heavily armed assault rifles. We've been shot at trying to expose them. They use TLBs. We sometimes see Venya Bidvest coming out of those bushes at probably like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We've got intelligence on the ground that is making sure that we get proper investigation in terms of cable theft. So what we need to make sure that is that We need soldiers on the ground to deal with cable theft. Because
soldiers on the ground to deal with cable theft. Quick one, Dwain, as we are wrapping up. There's talk about banning exports. There's talk about having a one contractor who collects all scrap metal and so on and so forth. Where do you sit?
I maintain empower communities to look after a community. These external security guards are not doing us justice. We find their uniform in trenches. It is known that they are the people that's pointing where these things are. Remove the tender system. Employ people back directly to City Power. Because now this subcontractor loses his contract with City Power out of a vendetta and a grudge. He knows exactly how our system is laid out. And they are the ones that can point to exactly where the cables are and what is copper and what is aluminium. Because now even aluminium is in demand because of the price of aluminium that went up. So we are still stuck nowhere. I'm sticking to what I'm saying. Empower communities to look after community.
Yeah. All right, David?
Yeah, what I will say, I will agree with the councillor here. Let's get communities being empowered. Stop. He spoke about millions that are being sent out to get security to guard the infrastructure that still gets stolen. So now, stop giving those people money. Get that money, bring it to the locals. So the same people, because now they're being empowered, because you are not going to risk your life. These people are heavily armed. You're not going to risk your life for nothing. So the same people that get paid to risk their life, where are they when the infrastructure is being stolen? Why can't you get the community, take those millions, throw it to the community, say, oh, here is the money now, guard your infrastructure. So surely I guarantee you, the infrastructure will not be stolen, because what we are doing here, it will never work. They will keep on trying to put the detectors. They'll keep on getting securities just for the money to go around. Because this money is just embezzling money just to go around. There is nothing that is going to work. This thing will never work.
Quick one, as we wrap up, the other thing that has been thrown in by Keabetswe is intelligence, crime intelligence. So even in the boardrooms there at City Power, you got to think like how criminals are thinking and be on the ground and have that kind of intelligence. How much is being invested there?
Thanks, Mr. Mdluli. I think that, my leader, it's part of the pillars we have at City Power to leverage on intelligence, specifically information that sits with communities. But just to add, Mr. Mdluli, our strategy is anchored on various pillars, one of which is what we call target hardening and security barriers reinforcement, including crime prevention through environmental design. Because we have also started now to operate with the engineers. As they design new projects, we are able to influence them to say, do not put this cable to run over a hill in an open land, rather bring it closer to a street, where you can then put a street light. It becomes easier to police it. But at the same time, there is the strategy of City Power where we migrate from copper to aluminium. Like, for instance, if we put a new installation, we now put aluminium. As much as there is a new market on aluminium, but that market is not as rife as the copper market. The other part is actually more now on other communities who are, I'm going to talk about abled communities, where they are able to say, we will adopt the network ourselves and will protect it at our own cost. There's a lot of those communities have engaged with them. Some of them we are signing memorandum of understanding with them. Some of them have already put alarms in some of our network, and they are able to protect it, which we really appreciate. But in communities where we need to develop the local economy, we will also then go for this local security contracting. One will need to also appreciate we operate on a very limited budget.
Yes.
As an example, City Power, the total network, it's valued at around about 63 billion.
Right.
Now, if you look at my budget to protect that network, I cannot disclose it here, but it's very minimal.
Completely out of time.
Yes.
Appreciate you. Of course, it's a conversation that still needs to go on for a while. Let's take a look at what you're saying tonight on social media at the beginning of the show. Of course, ask the question, the rise in cable theft, plunging communities into darkness and sabotaging Eskom and the economy and the communities. Are communities doing enough to protect their electricity infrastructure? We asked that question tonight. This is what you thought on this. 27.1% of you saying yes, while 72.9% of you saying no. course, the conversation still continues. A debate around whether to ban the export market, whether to declare the crime of cable theft as terrorism, all those things still out there being debated. We'll revisit this particular topic again here on In Focus. Thanks for watching. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time and thank you very much for coming through.